Comic Timing is member supported by listeners like you over at patreon.com/comic timing. We thank you so much for your continued support of the show. For as little as $1 a month, you keep this show afloat. And you can get access to some behind-the-scenes knowledge. You can get some behind-the-scenes audio. You can also get some early releases and exclusive content, like Kris's manga reviews, and a whole bunch more. We thank you very much for every little bit of support that you throw our way over at patreon.com/comic timing. Hey there, folks. My name's Ian Levitstein, and welcome to episode 246 of Comic Timing. And those of you who are watching the video right now are once again realizing that I am wearing a different shirt. Yep. It's going to be a similar shirt to something I'm wearing next episode, but maybe I recorded it the same day, or maybe I'm just wearing the same shirt. Maybe I'm a slob. I mean, I am a slob, but it's not that reason. I am just recording this the same day that I just recorded another episode. And those of you who are patrons already know what that episode is going to be, as I put a little teaser up there for those of you who are patrons of the show. Rest of you are just going to have to wait and find out. Ooh, suspense. Ooh, it's just a nice, fun comics conversation episode with certain people that you may enjoy hearing from. But nonetheless, this particular episode is the back half of our previous recording with Brent, myself, Kris and Donovan, Morgan Grant. We discuss in full our thoughts and opinions on Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men run. I also give my opinions on Jed MacKay's X-Men run later on in the episode. And we also go into what makes comic book art modern, and why it might be so for some people and not so for others. It's kind of one of those conundrums that is very, very hard to define, and we do our best to try to define it and not sound ridiculously stupid on this very episode. Hopefully we succeed. You're going to be the ones to tell us one way or the other. Please make sure to let us know in the comments whether or not we did a good job or not. But either way, I will hand it over to myself. I do that a lot. Why do I do that so much? And the recording. So take it away, me. You know what? Let's pivot over to Marvel at least a little bit. As
I'm done to talk Marvel.
Well, no, I know, but like actual comic books, like comic books to read rather than.
You did promise it earlier.
Yes, I did. I did promise it earlier. Dono inspired Kris and I to do some reading today.
We're gonna trash.
And
I'm sorry.
No, please.
It's because we're crapping on people on the internet. It's always fun.
By all means, like there's been some criticism online.
Get off my lawn.
From certain individuals that may be of the youth variety that seem to be crapping on Gail Simone's run of Uncanny X-Men. And I covered, Brent and I covered the first issue of that, for the podcast, along with the Raging Bullets guys. If you haven't listened to those episodes, listen to it. It's a good foot in your door for those first couple.
They're on issue 13 or 14, I think, right now.
They're on 13 or 14. I was able to read on Unlimited up to issue 9 of X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. I read them both because at issues 7, 8, and 9 of the series essentially are a crossover.
Yeah, that's where I got to today. I was reading it earlier today while waiting for my super to fix my sink.
And there's another crossover going on right now called X-Manhunt.
Yes.
Which, if you haven't read issue 10, it deals with that guy.
So,
I have not.
Okay, not even talking about these particular issues, but I am still so goddamn tired of how Marvel Unlimited handles crossovers, in that it doesn't handle them at all.
No, they don't. They don't. And it pisses me off. Well, yeah, along these lines. So you read part 1, and wouldn't it be nice if Marvel Unlimited immediately just sent you to part 2, even if it was in another series? No. You have to X out. You have to search for that series.
Comixology doesn't do it either.
Yeah, but still, it's simple math. You know,
not math. It's basic HTML.
Yes.
I don't know what they're using behind the scenes. Is probably Python or some shit, JavaScript, whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact is that Sir Tim Berners-Lee did not invent HTML for you to not link goddamn things. When you finish, when you're reading a comic and it's in a crossover, when you finish the last issue, it should give you 2 boxes, one to go to the next issue and one to go to the next issue in the crossover.
100%.
Because like some people are weird and might just not want to care about the crossover, you know, but it's not fucking hard to program that. I mean, I'm not a great programmer, but I know that's so simple. Like I said, we've had this technology for like 35 years now. Why are you not using it?
I agree. I agree. And like, if you'd already been reading the series and you're up to date, you can go back to the front page and you can click. But I don't want to do that. I literally just want to hit next and get to the next part of the story. And they haven't programmed it in. Whatever. Kris, I want to get your thoughts first on what you've read so far of this Uncanny X-Men series. You read up to issue 6, I guess?
7, actually, because I started the crossover.
Got it.
My first comment when reading the crossover is that, you know, because I'm reading Uncanny X-Men, I'm not reading X-Men. I realized even when I started reading the crossover that I didn't need to read the previous issues of X-Men because they're actually really good at, one, letting you know what's going on in the other book in Uncanny, and I thought that was a really interesting thing to do.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that they were fully intertwined, that they were inseparable, but it was just like, just so you know, this is going on, or at least this is what our characters know about what's going on.
Right.
Like it still feels like a cohesive universe, at least. So I didn't feel the need to go back and read X-Men just yet. My major takeaway, though, was that I don't like the art in X-Men, but I like the art in Uncanny.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
I found the art.
Are you talking about Ryan Stegman or Neitho Diaz?
Yes, I don't really like Ryan Stegman's art in this.
Seconded.
It is kind of 90s.
It's very 90s. That's what it comes down to. I was thinking about that, like especially when you know earlier we were talking about how the kids are like, oh, the art in this is so old, and I'm like, what exactly are you talking about? Like, can you put that into words instead of saying that modern art versus old-fashioned art? Like, what does that even mean to you?
So
I think the thing I like the most about Stegman's art is putting the black behind Beast's eyes. That's actually like the one art choice that I actually really enjoy.
So the artist that fills in for Stegman, I think he rotates in and out. I'm guessing it's a guy. I'm not sure. It's called the artist is named Neitho Diaz.
Okay.
And for some reason, I have a hard on for any artist named Diaz. That's a monster fill-in. Neitho Diaz is my newest one. My old one, Paco Diaz. Paco Diaz, if you don't remember, finished out the Nightwing 1 year later storyline.
Yes.
And I liked his stuff. And he also did the Wolverine Jason Aaron in Japan storyline. That was like a digital comic, Bloodlines or something like that it was called. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, but I like
anybody named Diaz, I'm assuming is a good artist, and they fill in, and they, for whatever reason, they never make it big, but I think they're great. So good job, Neitho.
But I mean, I'll say I have my artistic taste. I tend to like art that's a lot softer looking, like more rounded and everything. I am really liking, I had to look up his first name. Like, I probably have read issues with him, but David Marquez, I'm really enjoying his art. It reminds me of the best. Yeah, it reminds me of some of like Pacheco was one of my favorite X-Men artists when he actually drew X-Men, you know, things like that. Like that, it evokes that for me, and I'm really enjoying it. It has that right balance of the harshness of some art with the softness.
Yeah.
Because I know like when it's very soft and rounded, little cartoony, I know a lot of, let's be honest, dudes are all like, this art sucks.
This is where you read Marquez. Ultimate Spider-Man.
There you go. Yep.
That's
and
right.
then All New X-Men, he did it after Eminem left.
Nice.
But in terms of the story, I think it's a good idea to have some of the older, you know, I mean, at this point, they're the legacy characters, and you have like Rogue and Gambit, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and, you know, eventually Jubilee. Yeah. And then mix in the new characters. I think that keeps it from feeling unbalanced. It also prevents that whole like I don't mind when X-Men is about a school, but at the same time, I feel like it's been done to death.
Yes.
And I know that's like blasphemy because that's literally what X-Men is. But I'm always hesitant when you bring in new characters because for starters, because the timeline doesn't move, you just end up with a bunch of like people eternally
Of a trillion teenagers.
Yeah. Like
everybody who was in Grant Morrison's X-Men never finished high school. And then everybody in Wolverine and the X-Men never finished high school. And now you have another set of teenagers who are never going to finish high school in the X-Men.
Yeah, well,
Or
then they
Avengers
do.
Academy.
Yeah, they all end up in their 20s, but somehow some characters are definitely older than each other, even though there's only 10 years in a decade, but we have like 15 generations of
Oh yeah.
X-Men or whatever.
Jubilee, Jubilee is older, but so is Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
But one
How
is
how old
definitely
is
younger
Jubilee
than the other
compared to
one.
Quentin Quire right now?
Jubilee has to be, I'd say, probably about 5 years older than Quentin Quire.
Yeah, but is she 25 or 20?
She's
got a baby. Is she 30? She should be 30.
I think they even dropped in the story.
She was like
that she's
15 in
like-
the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. That's just
She
it.
started off 13, and then they let her, like, she was 15 by the time of Gen X. I think they were saying that she was 15. I mean, I could be wrong.
She
I
was like
have
17 in the book. Okay.
Yeah, when she adopted the baby, she was technically an adult, so she would be at least 18. Like, it's the ages are all weird. I kind of accept it as a consequence, but it's always that risk. You're like, oh, X-Men have to teach new mutants. Oh crap, now it's another generation of kids.
Yeah.
And it's like how long did you teach this last class for? Oh, about 6 months. Then we moved on to the next one.
Yeah.
Like, how many consecutive years has Wolverine been teaching? Like, in the timeline, it's probably like 5.
Kitty Pryde
How
was
long was he
literally
dead?
Kitty Pryde was literally a headmistress of a school, and I think she's like 23, if I remember correctly. Like she's like there's no way she's older than 25. That much
Like,
I know.
Has it been
she's
10 years
she's teaching
since the
teenagers
Phoenix
in
Saga?
Exceptional X-Men.
Yeah. Yep. But I like the villains that they've introduced in this, like Sarah Gaunt. I actually really dug that story. Sarah Gaunt being for a minute there, I thought they were really gonna go the, oh no, Professor Xavier has abandoned yet another.
He was a heel, and it's like, no, she's just fucking delusional.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, like, that was great. I was like, yes, thank you, Gail. Thank you, because that trope
didn't
is
they
so
already
overdone.
do that at the end of the Krakoa era?
Yes, they did. Multiple times they've done that. Xavier has abandoned many, many women over the years. That it's kind of his thing. And children. Both.
His love life is a goddamn mess.
Hey
Yeah.
man, let
So-
a play.
Speaking of X-Men,
Yeah.
Ian, do you remember which book I thought was going to be the best out of those 6?
Refresh my memory.
NYX.
Yes, NYX.
Still the case. Still
Okay,
the case.
good. I gotta catch up.
It is ending soon. So issue
I know.
8 I read yesterday,
Yeah, I think
and it's a showdown between Hellion
Mhm.
and Laura.
Nice.
I never read the new X-Men stuff that they referenced heavily, but I felt it.
Okay.
Great
Nice.
book.
Yeah. Well, I think it's what MYX, X Force, and X Factor that are coming to a conclusion, if I remember
Yes.
correctly.
X-Force fine with me. X-Factor was so on.
Yeah, but no, X Factor ending. I'm upset because Cecilia Reyes. Enough said. But I know it's like she can never win. She can never win. Damn it.
Yeah, well, that's another reason I'm always hesitant when they like create new characters, because those characters are not going to be as valued as the legacy characters, and often are treated as disposable.
So far, I like these characters that they've introduced here in Uncanny X-Men. I think
What are their names?
Joey, Jojo,
Calico. So I have questions
Exactly.
about
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
I need to catch up, but I am very curious about Calico, where she's like, I'm not a mutant, because that's what my
Oh,
mommy
yeah.
told me. And Gambit's like, you are a mutant. She's like, I am a mutant.
Yeah.
And that's fine as a story point, but did you read the letter columns, Ian?
No, I skipped over the letter columns.
Oh my God. So there's a letter where someone's pointing out, they said, I've been an X-Men reader for the longest time, and I've always loved it for its message of acceptance, but I feel like in the past few years, I've been seeing it get very bigoted towards non-mutants, like with the way vocabulary, it is very dehumanizing, and I don't really like that. And I liked, and what I like about, they said what I like about Uncanny is the fact that like Calico is like not a mutant, and they're like, it's okay, you're here, like, why are you here? She's like, I had no place to go, and they're like, that's cool with that. And then like an issue late, that same issue when that letter appeared, it's like, no, you are a mutant. I was like, God damn it, why did you even print that letter, you fucking idiots?
Well, that brings the point of like why I was asking you guys, have you guys been reading Uncanny X-Men? There's been some static online because people online who I don't even assume are Gen X or I'm sorry, Gen Z, just because of like just the level of outrage they were kind of performing online. We're saying that like Gail Simone had not only written the characters incorrectly, but like, oh, she's writing Wolverine to be racist against Japanese people, and she's writing
No.
like Emma Frost to be, too nice to Professor X, and they're being too mean to these kids of color or whatever. And I was like, well, that's an audacious charge, but
Yeah.
I, as much as I love the X-Men, I can't keep up with the freaking comics, so I don't know if this tracks with the recent stuff. So that's why I threw it over to you guys, and you
So
guys you said Riley no.
Gail
So
Simone,
so
who
far-
had the biggest lesbian romance in Secret Six of all the comic books at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Is a terrible bigot.
And so-
Sure, I
yeah,
believe
so-
you.
Well,
so far there has not been anything involving any Wolverine racist against Japanese people. So if that happens, it
I
must
mean,
be issue 10, 11, or 12.
He's given the Japanese kid shit, but that's because the Japanese kid is a little shit.
Yes,
He's a
exactly.
shithead, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's the
what,
deaf guy, right?
Yeah, it's like
Gaunt is his. That's
no, it's like Deathdream or something.
Deathdream,
Somebody-
Oh yeah, he's got
yeah.
a dumb name.
It's a
Yeah.
weird name. I mean, it actually makes perfect sense for the character. Just like what's
Some
his face?
Sandman combination.
Yeah, just like Megaton. Was Megatronic Teenage War. Oh my God, why can't I even remember?
Megasonic
Megasonic
Teenage
Teenage
War.
Well,
Thank you,
that one
thank you.
rolls off the tongue, so you can remember it. But just
Yeah.
Death Dream does not
What-
like inspire
something
any
Dono,
memory.
Yeah, Dono, you did bring up that people were complaining that it's set in New Orleans, but they don't have more black mutants, and then they named a bunch of mutants who aren't from Louisiana. Like, what the fuck? Like, is that?
I
I'm like,
know.
Yeah.
the people making this complaint, I have to assume are white and are just assume that like New Orleans is the ancestral homeland of black people.
That's
For
the thing
listeners'
with these kinds of
context.
things.
Yeah.
Donovan said this in our Facebook group chat,
Yeah.
our private host chat.
I do have a thought also. The fact, so in one of the editorial things they mentioned, they talk about the Alaska X-Men, and they actually at one point they say the New Orleans X-Men. They are not based in New Orleans. They are actually in a rural area, and it specifically says that like multiple times they have to drive into New Orleans. And I thought the parallels
I mean,
to that.
is Gray Malkin in New York or no?
That's just it. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Gray Malt. Well, that they
Are they the New York X-Men?
Westchester.
They never say, well, the X-Men are not considered a New York-based team because they're in Westchester County.
I don't know where that is. I'm not in New York.
It is north of New York City. It is the borough. It is the county literally just north of us. Some of it there are cities in Westchester County.
Mhm.
Salem Center is not one of those.
I'm actually
Salem-
close. I'm actually very close to Westchester County. I'm on the tip of New York City. So, like, if you were to go further up from where I am, eventually you get to Westchester. County.
You can Google the address.
Dude.
It's funny because it actually shows up on Google Maps now. It used to not.
Do true
you-
New Yorkers look down their nose at Westchesterians as
Oh,
not
yeah.
native
Oh,
New
yeah.
Yorkers?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Mostly Yonkers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Yonkers.
Mostly Yonkers because Yonkers wants to be New York City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They charge the same tax rate as us, and a lot of people in Yonkers work in the city and just don't want to live in the city. And the only reason Yonkers isn't part of New York City is because they didn't vote for it back in 1898. So yeah, we shit on Yonkers all the time. Sorry, Yonkers
You
listeners.
hate mutants back down there.
But also like I like the fact that there's a mutant that literally doesn't have a heart. That there's one that can channel different fighting styles for like an hour at a time. Like it's some unique power sets from this new group.
I was really hoping the horse was the mutant.
I
Which
will
might
say
be the case. We still don't know. It could
We still
very
don't
well
know.
be the
Okay,
case.
I just need to know that because if somebody has read every issue and they revealed that, I'm sorry, we haven't read that far. But I'm
Yeah.
sitting there going, no, I want for the girl to say I'm not a mutant and have that be true because the horse is the mutant.
Exactly.
back to your pithy land-based commentary.
Mhm.
As a non-New Yorker, I will
Yes.
say
Yes.
I live in unincorporated Orange County,
yes.
not within the Orlando city limits. I'm
Uh-huh.
still from Orlando. There's a place above us called Seminole County.
Mhm.
Has a couple of cities, towns really, Oviedo, Sanford, and a lot of people I work with live in Seminole County. They still say, "Where are you from?" They're like Orlando.
Of
So,
course. Yeah.
I'm
And by
just,
the way,
I'm just saying, for not New Yorkers, like that's a normal thing to be
Yeah.
like
No,
an hour outside of
But
New
as a-
Orleans.
but
and be
as
like,
an
yeah,
X-Men-
I'm from New Orleans.
As an X-Men reader, though, it's always been they never really say they're in New York City. They never
they
say
don't.
like it's always. I feel like it's.
Oh
this
no,
is how
it's
you
very
know.
specific. It's always Westchester. I know.
Yeah.
Like, Westchester,
And
New York. But I never knew
think-
where that was.
Yeah, it's our suburb.
Could have been Albany for all I cared, like or Buffalo, far the fuck away.
That
I
is
still consider
those
them like
are.
New York. I didn't picture them like sharing a cat with Spider-Man, but like Westchester to New York, I was like, oh, that's all I need to know.
now, you know what it is actually, Dono? It's like how Nightwing's in Bloodhaven, and that's by Gotham, but it's not
Yeah,
Gotham.
it's
It's
Oh, it's
Bloodhaven.
across
about
the bay. Yeah.
so
I
in
thought
this
that was
case,
dumb.
it's about creating the psychological distance.
Exactly.
Story-wise, it's about creating that distance.
Mhm.
One's
In
here,
practice
one's here in the country.
Yeah.
it would still take you a fucking hour to drive there from Manhattan, if not more. It'd be
Yes,
like
it
an
would.
hour and a half, 2 hours to
One of
drive
those
up.
Stan Lee stories where they were in the city. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
well, that's it. They would get on the
Well,
train or
yeah.
drive into the city. This
Where
was
they got
something they did
teleported.
regularly.
Yeah.
I'm just
I
saying
want
that.
them to invent a manifold engine where manifold like has his powers in this technology, and they give him these warp drives to get around the country so freaking fast. Because in that crossover, they appear from Alaska to wherever the Greymalkin, like instantaneously, and you're like, that's 3,000 miles.
Yeah, that would be like a 6-hour flight normally.
Even an SR-71 Blackbird, which I think's supposed to be, it'd still be a long flight.
Yeah,
Oh,
but just
absolutely.
going back to the current run of Uncanny is the fact that they're not actually in New Orleans. They're in this rural area and they literally drive into New Orleans to go shopping. And I actually love that because it harkens back to those early issues of X-Men, where
Mhm.
again, like the original five are like, yeah, let's go hang out in the city this weekend. Yeah, like it has that same vibe to it. And I mean, it always makes sense to have, if you're going to be training new mutants, forgive the pun there, you don't want to be in the city limits because you will be discovered and you also run the risk of something going wrong.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like, I thought that was a nice nod, while also changing the locale and all that stuff. But again, the whole idea is like, no, this should have M and this should have M and Sync.
Well, but Monet is actually coming. Monet was teased at the end of Uncanny X-Men #1 on the last page.
Yeah.
So like
Oh,
she
there's also like, Jubilee is dating a white cop. I was like, what is this, 2018? Like,
I haven't
this is not a political priority right now.
Yeah, clearly. And also like, I haven't gotten to that part yet, but you know what? If she is and it makes story sense, then okay, cool. Like, who cares?
Well, the thing is, though, it has become, like an unpopular choice in stories. I brought up Ian when I did the little extra point about Haikyuu,
Yeah.
and one of the controversies in the fandom, because what happens in the last few issues are like there's a time jump and they're all adults and everything, and not every player became a professional volleyball player, so they all have real jobs.
Mhm.
I mean, not that you know what? Being an athlete's not a real job. I'm gonna have people killing me
Fuck
now
your
for
talent
that.
and your money.
Yeah, how dare you, right? But yeah, like having like normal jobs as opposed to like these, kind of like, yeah, being working in sports is weird. But like one of the characters became a cop, and people were so pissed about that. Never mind that it's Japan, so it's not like it's like an American cop, but people
Yeah,
were
it's totally different context.
yeah, it's not. I'm like, it's not the same thing, but even that's where we are now. That it's just
Yeah.
like people are gonna be kind of like,
Oh, and also
There's the same exact outrage in the Arthur finale when DW grew up to be a cop. Except there wasn't because she was a narc the whole time.
Look, long story short, as of issue 9, it hasn't happened. So if it does happen and they went out on one date and the internet is upset about that and somehow saying that she's dating this person, then so be it. But I'll read the subsequent issues and we'll see what goes down. But
the internet will always be mad.
I just have such a zero tolerance for like Tumblr level cultural critique of comic books because I have bumped into too many people who want to flex their muscles and just get it wrong. Like, oh, everyone knows that in the 80s, Superman was palling around with Reagan in every issue, and they'll cite legends when Superman was disagreeing with Reagan and then disobeyed him. And they'll let like, Darkman Returns to like the 80s Superman. It's like you've not actually read these. You just see this on the internet and complain. Like I cannot stand unthinking critique. It just gets to me.
Oh, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything about. I'm just thinking about non-comic books with last week's finale for Severance, and people are arguing about the finale on a shipping basis.
no, shut
Hell
up.
yeah.
No.
They are literally arguing about Innie and Audi Mark and the
No.
love interest.
No, stop it. No. No, I haven't caught up.
Yeah, but
you know what?
that's
No.
why I'm being as vague as possible. But if you've watched any Severance, you know that there's that
Yeah,
divide
I
and
know.
there's two love interests, and it's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, wow, you just completely missed the point of the whole fucking show.
By the way, can I bring up the names of the characters real quick? It's Jitter, Ransom, Deathdream, and Calico. Those are the names.
I remembered Calico,
Yeah.
which is a
Deathdream.
dumb name.
Calico, the literal horse girl. Like
Yeah, I
that.
was gonna say, Ian, did you notice the part like in the Grey Malkin crossover when she goes, "War horse"?
Yes, I did. 100%.
I heard your voice reading
War
that.
horse. Do you see that horse? That's a war horse.
All right.
Yeah.
Close out opinion question.
Yes.
If we have time for one more thing.
Go ahead.
Bring up the art complaint. So, context. I got a YouTube comment on one of my videos about Batman Murderer or something like that.
Mhm.
And it was maybe it's a War Games flip through. And basically this commenter, I'm assuming they're a younger person other than me. I'm 38, so I'm technically old now, right? So I'm assuming they're young. They were complaining about the art in Murderer being not their style, and that they liked Batman War Games. I think they were looking at the omnibuses because it said omnibus. Saying this was a more modern art style than Murderer.
Mhm.
So, what is your definition of a modern art style, like in the modern age of comics? To me, modern starts after like this stuff, right? Like when
beautiful.
you have computer separated colors. Like I love this stuff from the 90s and late 80s. I can read this stuff. This is all Robin compendium, right? This is Tom Grummett doing some awesome stuff in here in the early 90s. But this is pre 1994. I still consider this to be like semi-modern comics.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say like the modern era as we understand it now with computer colors starts until Spawn, Image, whatever. So to me, these books are the same. And maybe they don't like it because Scott McDaniel's in here. But to me, like, that's the difference to me is the style of art. Because Scott McDaniel's a lot more different. Who else is in here? Damian Scott.
I remember Scott McDaniel on that run, but I might be misremembering.
He does Batman 600, so he's doing Batman with
yeah.
Yeah, he's in here.
Nightwing, but yeah.
You know what? You know what I'll say, Brent, and I may be wrong about this, and you guys could disagree with it if you'd like. I'd say modern art to the youths, and I dated myself from even saying it that way. Is probably manga-esque, like the type of art that is reminiscent. Yeah, exactly. Like Blue Beetle there, like reminiscent, but not necessarily copying a style that you would find in a manga. Like
they want Shonen Jump.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
When we say manga, I mean, mind you, manga just means comics in Japanese, and it's huge. There's so many different actual styles. When most people talk about manga, though, especially the kids, they mean Shonen Jump.
Yeah, like this is Blue Beetle Volume 2, Scarab Forever Blue. This is Adrian Gutierrez, who's on World's Finest right now after Dan Mora left, killing it over there. I love his art style on Blue Beetle.
The coloring seems really interesting.
I'm not sure about it on Batman Superman, but it definitely works for Blue Beetle. So I guess this is the more modern thing you're talking about, as opposed to like standard superhero fare.
Well, for me, if you really want it, I mean, mind you, I am completely baffled by this statement in general, but if I had to actually define modern, and this is where we started this conversation about the X-Men. You asked me, and I told you I didn't really like Stedman's art. It's for me the difference like between modern and old-fashioned is it designed for digital publication versus print?
Right.
And I feel Stedman's designing it for print. It doesn't look as good digitally. Like there is some art that looks great in print and looks like shit in digital, and then there's vice versa, art that looks good in digital, but then it looks like crap on an actual printed page.
I would think that the overly detailed stuff of Stegman's looks better in digital.
This is a Netho Diaz page.
And that's Netho Diaz. He's great. I love
Yeah, exactly. And like for comparison's sake, Netho is similar to Stegman, but also I think a lot less
hatchy.
Less hatchy, fewer lines, even reminiscent to a Walt Simonson in some of his faces. But at the same time, like, it's a little bit more fluid that way because there's fewer lines involved, and the characters actually kind of look a little bit more their age. Like, I remember saying when we reviewed X-Men #1 that I didn't feel like Cyclops exactly looked the right age because of the way Stegman was drawing him. When Netho draws him, I feel that a little bit less. Like, he feels a little bit more like the Cyclops age that I would expect, while the kids look like kids. So
Cyclops is one of those characters that feels parentally 30 years old.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah,
he
to
actually
me,
is or not.
there's very little difference between that Netho Diaz page and like this. Oh wow, this is Brad Walker 20 years ago. I can't believe that's Brad Walker.
Yeah.
His style has changed a lot, but like to me, there's very little difference between that.
Oh
and
yeah,
this.
he absolutely has changed a lot. I mean, War Games' artwork, like the story, wasn't all that hot to begin with, but like
There's a lot of Paul Galassi in here, which I love Paul Galassi.
But really, when it comes down to it, and I'm laughing even as I say this, but when it comes down to it, you know what modern art is to the modern comic book reader? Whatever the hell you read most recently. Like, like that's what it comes down to. It's like if you have been reading a very specific comic book for a long time and you're used to that artist, and that's what your idea of artwork is, and then you see something that is very different than that, you're probably not going to consider it to be the same. And that's
I don't know. I'm now thinking about, like, when I was younger and I read a lot more, I would pore over my favorite stories artwork, like that Robin companion that Brent showed up, like Robin issue 6 or whatever, where he's trapped in, like, with Clue Master in that buried truck. I remembered it's like, just Tom Grummett's mastery of like storytelling, and like, time progression between the panels, and like, the suspense of every panel, and how he would do that, and how he would render characters' facial expressions, and then comparing it to like Blue Beetle, which is a lot more manga influenced, but it's a lot more high fast action. And I'm wondering if, like, if modern artwork is, I think I define modern artwork in terms of like the maturation of the sense of storytelling. And I think when Kris mentions it's probably, much more with younger readers, manga influenced. Again, even that might also depend on the certain kind of manga story. But if it's Shonen Jump, which is like, young boy stuff, it would be high, fast flying,
Yeah.
But see,
Naruto,
like,
JJK
so
stuff.
I opened this page. This is Scott McDaniel in the Nightwing Compendium. There's a lot of Greg Land in here too. But Ian, put that page back up from Freddie E. Williams.
Yeah.
Right? Is that Freddie E?
Yeah, that was Freddie. Yep.
God, I love that run with Eddie. Gosh, who was writing it?
Was it Beechin?
Beechin, Adam Beechin.
Yeah.
I want them to put that in the DC's Finest. So fucking
Absolutely.
bad.
Yeah.
I would love to. So to me, there's very little difference between Freddie E. Williams, and this is still like 20 years old.
Mhm.
This is 2008.
Yeah.
7, right? And that's a very different Freddie E. Williams than what you see on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman crossover, He-Man crossover stuff now with the watercolors. But that's what I fell in love with. And to me, you put up Scott McDaniel. Now look at my page. Very little difference, right? Like stylistically, pretty similar. In terms of posing, things like that. The kineticness of the artwork. Yeah, it's not a double page spread, okay, but you still got Nightwing leaping, kicking some guys in the face here.
In my opinion, McDaniel is better.
No, yeah. Well, McDaniel had, I think, it drawn a lot more before then, and then Freddie E's kind of, no offense, Freddie, I don't know if he still listens, but like, he kind of niched himself into this crossover space. You know what I mean, with the watercolors. So
yeah, I get that. Yeah,
he's not doing as much frequency as Scott McDaniel was at the time, but who knows? But yeah. So to me, that's the separation. Like, I think of Tom Grummett as more modern than oh gosh, who's the guy that did most of the night? Like, not Graham Nolan, but the longtime Batman artist, Brave and the Bold.
Jim Aparo.
Jim Aparo, right? Like, Jim Aparo is strictly like 70s, 80s to me. He crossed over into the 90s, but to me, he's a Bronze Age artist. And then modern, I got Tom Grummett.
Yeah.
Still modern. The coloring makes it a little bit different from what they were putting that DC was putting out at the time. And then you get people that are like ultra modern for me, like Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and anybody else forwards.
But today's
because they're super detailed. But today's kids
would not consider today's kid would not consider Todd McFarlane or Jim Lee to be modern. Definitely not. I
mean, like, is John Romita Jr. the oldest artist in the game in terms of like years on the field?
No, Simonson's still doing stuff.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you look at like
Not
Romita
as
Jr.'s
frequent.
stuff in his 80s, and then he's still doing like Zeb Wells Spider-Man.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, you see the progression of artwork. I mean, his stuff from let's say the 90s through current looks the
Man Without
most
Fear
similar.
to the Zeb Wells Spider-Man is very consistent stylistically
Yes, definitely.
from
True.
JRJR.
Yeah, but if
Yeah,
you were to
from
look at it like,
Daredevil to his X-Men stuff to Spider-Man for like 10 years
yeah.
or however
he,
long it
he he
was.
had a major style shift, and that's going to happen with any artist. Like, you know, as they mature and they change as a person, obviously their art style is going to do the same.
But
If you look at Walt Simonson today versus Walt Simonson when he was doing Thor, it's similar, but it's also very different because he's older, he's wiser, and he's making different art choices than he used to.
Most artists become less detailed. Like if you look at like I mentioned, I don't know if it was before the call or whatever, but Akira Toriyama. If you look at his early stuff, like it's like Akira Toriyama's like Cavalcade of Comics or whatever it was called, like it was incredibly detailed. It recalled a lot of the earlier stuff, like Tetsuo Ohara and like the Berserk guy. And then as he went along, he kind of found his own groove, his own style. Then like near the end of Dragon Ball Z, it became a lot more angular. And then when he did like Blue Dragon and Saiyan and stuff, everyone became skinnier and shorter and smaller, where it was not necessarily less detailed, but it was definitely much more compact. And you can kind of trace across like a person's career that kind of like, refining of their style, and then also kind of leaning into that style to be less detailed. And then whether you like it more or less, that
Yeah.
happens with like every artist.
Yeah, well, there's also when you say less detailed, I mean, when it comes to manga, it's also the fact that like you're doing this for years, week after week after
Mhm.
week,
Yep,
and that's gonna wear on you after a while. And maybe,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm not gonna call it phoning it in, but you do start to realize, especially as you get older and wiser, and you realize, why am I killing myself for this? And I'm not saying it makes you a worse artist, but I can see like people might become less detailed, their style might get a little looser, especially as you like when you're famous, you actually do get a little leeway with the fans.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that I mean, we've seen that happen. Uh, Honestly, if I look at J. Scott Campbell's stuff today,
Oh boy.
yeah, you could
It's
also
a big example. I'm sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
no. I was just going to say you could just see as an example artists that don't do sequentials anymore that are basically just all pinup. And they do it because they can make their money off the pinup, and they can go do other stuff, more professional stuff that's not comic book related, make more money off of that than they would otherwise. But you definitely see art styles change when they go for straight pinup versus interior, because they don't need to worry about all those details they used to worry about before in the background.
Or when they're
two
doing a cover, they can spend more time on it too.
I was
two
gonna say
two
like a
guys.
huge example is Mark Brooks. I loved Mark Brooks's
Oh,
early style. It was
huge
very
change.
manga inspired,
Yeah.
but his artwork is complete. He does not look like the same artist, and he doesn't do
No.
interiors because his covers and his splash images are so turbo detailed and they look gorgeous, but
Oh yeah.
it's barely recognizable as the same guy.
Two
Yeah.
guys that got famous and slowed and down and their styles got simpler are in this book right here. This
Oh
is
my God.
epic collection. David Finch, right?
Yes.
You
Oh,
want
Yes.
to talk
man.
about David Finch's stuff in New Avengers? Super detailed, super awesome. Avengers Disassembled, awesome. And then you look at his stuff, the late Wonder Woman stuff that he did on New 52, not as great. Second guy, oh, geez, I had the perfect page. Second guy,
Brian Hitch.
not Brian Hitch.
Man, when I first saw Brian Hitch for the first time in the 90s, it just blew my mind how like detailed and clean, like,
McNiven.
Oh yeah.
ooh.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Look at,
McNiven-
I had a
McNiven's completely
beautiful Sentry page pulled up just as a reference to all of our in jokes earlier. Anyway, McNiven stuff from here to Civil War, and Inker has a lot to do with this. I think Mark Morales is inking him on this, right? The early McNiven stuff, but yeah, huge style change from
I mean,
McNiven on here to then Nemesis to whatever cover he puts out now does not look like McNiven at
Yeah.
all. And I think McNiven also suffers from colorists. Like when he was working with Maury Hollowell on this and all the Marvel projects.
Match for him. Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Is that
That's not Steve McNiven.
Yeah. That's McNiven. Daredevil, Cold Day in Hell. Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying. To
I can't
me,
even
in my brain. That's not
possibly
Steve McNiven. It barely looks
reconcile
like that.
It's like
Because
Frank Miller, if
The
anything. I know
inker,
it's
the
not Frank Miller.
colorist. Yeah, he's gotten super simple, which is fine, but it's not the Steve McNiven of old.
Well, also it's literally Daredevil, so he is probably homaging Frank Miller.
And I know that. I think the thing behind
There's
that
another
Cold Day
artist
in Hell
whose
is
art
it's an
styles
older
changed over time.
Daredevil. Yeah.
Yeah, we could have an entire episode on the art style changes of Frank Miller. That is very, very much happened. But long
Go
story
from
short,
Wolverine to
modern should not be a term you use unless you are at a modern art museum and they've made the choice for you. Plain and simple. Like, what is modern to one person is not modern to
honestly, you could
Yes.
say it, but you need to be able to explain it.
Yes, exactly.
That's my only rule. You need to be able to explain, like we just did here.
Yes.
One note I wanted to make on when I'm talking about technology and whether or
Mhm.
not you're designing it for print
Sure.
versus the web, rather than call out any particular title, I will go to another medium with video games.
Yes.
If you look at video games from the CRT era, let's be honest, we're talking about the 8-bit and 16-bit eras, and the way the characters were designed was they were designed like the sprites were designed specifically knowing they were going to appear on a CRT, and CRTs introduce blurring.
Yes.
And now the thing is, like, now we have recreations, we have pixel perfect recreations, and let's be honest, they look like shit
Mm-hmm.
because they are perfect. They
Yeah.
are exact recreations without the fuzziness,
And that's why the Capcom Fighting Collection has all these filters you can
Yeah.
apply to it to make it look more like you want it to look. Like
Yeah.
it's pixel perfect to input delay, but you could then apply a filter on top of it to make it look more like CRT-esque.
Make it slightly fuzzy.
Exactly, make it
Because
slightly
I think
fuzzy.
people forget your eyes do a lot of work in
absolutely.
processing things.
Absolutely.
And it does affect how you look at art. And again, and it's the same with comics, where, like I said, it's something that is some of this, like when I'm reading Marvel Unlimited, like I've been reading every issue of Avengers and X-Men, and they're never going to look as good as they did on the original page because all this art was designed for print
Mhm.
and not for this digital pitch, perfect. And it's even worse when they recolor it.
Yes.
The coloring is just it's wrong. It's too bright, it's too flat. Like it
Mhm.
when it was on a piece of paper, on a piece of mashed tree, for the love of God.
Yeah.
Like the colors might be garish, but they're being muted by the paper.
Which is why a lot of those older stuff then get a color retreat, at least later on in life. Like we were talking not too long ago about, or at least I was talking not too long ago. It was on the Back to the Bins episode that I was on, which, by the way, will be released on the feed sometime in the next week or two. Just a heads up to everybody about that. There was a brand new Back to the Bins that I recorded with the quote-unquote gold team, or whatever you want to call it, of Murd, Chris, Shane, and of course Paul Spataro. We were talking about digital recoloring of some of the Neil Adams stuff, and how it's very obvious to tell what has been retouched and what hasn't, because it just straight up looks more, if you want to call it modern, because the color treatment has made it so. If you were to look at the original, copies that came out,
the Detective Comics stuff.
the Detective Comic stuff, like the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, big time.
Huge difference from what's on the digital, DC Infinite versus the original copies that were released, because the originals had different flats, they have different, color sequence, and it just feels very, very different than what was released digitally for that very reason. So something to keep in mind.
Speaking of coloring, if you want to do not a deep dive, but just get into more of the differences between original and recoloring, Jose Villarrubia on his Facebook page has from time to time, from a colorist perspective, the series is called, of where he looks at like the original colors in a recoloring or something that he's working on as a recolor, and how he's trying to keep the original spirit of the original coloring while he's doing the digital stuff.
Nice.
Because he's done some recoloring of some stuff. I can't remember what, but it's very interesting. From time to time, he'll post something random and be like, here's original. Here's why this works. Here's why this doesn't work, based on like color theory and stuff like that. It's interesting.
I think we've definitely seen huge advances, leaps and bounds in coloring as an art because of computer coloring and because of digital, which lets colorists be a little more creative with how they color things.
Yeah.
Because again, when you're printing on cheap pulp, it's gonna it's gonna fuck with your colors.
Absolutely.
And now they know now whatever they put on the page, they know that's what's going to make it to the consumer. And I mean, that's beautiful, honestly. It's really nice to see people finally be appreciated for how much thought they put into that, and the fact that you can put process online, like Brent was just describing.
Yeah.
Also, we were talking about, I'm sorry, I don't mean that, but no, an artist who changed, and I was thinking Humberto Ramos, and I did not know he's doing Fantastic Four now. So.
Yes, yeah. Humberto Ramos is going to be starting a brand new run. They're going to start a new volume of Fantastic Four as well to probably get as many people as possible. Same guy who's writing it right now. It's not actually
Ryan North.
Yeah, Ryan North is still going to be the writer on it. It's just a brand new volume because there's a new Fantastic Four movie coming out, and Marvel probably thinks that they need a new number one. But it's Humberto Ramos. His art style has definitely changed, but it's nice and clean and simplistic and action oriented. Like, I think it could work really well for the Fantastic Four in particular.
In my circles, which I no longer circle myself from, he's been a polarizing artist. I really enjoyed him in like the Peter Parker Spider-Man stuff with Paul
Jenkins.
Yeah, Paul Jenkins.
Paul Jenkins.
Yep.
By the time he was on like Slot's ASM run, I didn't dislike him, but I started to wane off because I think he got like really stylized, and so he is one of those artists that, like, at one point he was one of my favorite artists, and then it's like, well, gosh, I'm not sure if I'm feeling him this much anymore.
You mean
it'll be interesting to
Ramos,
see how he
right?
interprets those characters. Yeah, Humberto Ramos.
I'm exactly on the same direction as you, but I'm as someone who read him when he was doing Impulse back in the early 90s.
I was gonna say, I never read the Impulse stuff, but I loved the stuff from Spectacular Jenkins on.
Yeah.
If this cover is actually Humberto Ramos,
like that's the least angular jaw.
Yeah,
that is definitely him.
Yeah.
No, wait, hold on.
No, that is him.
That's
enlarged and
Grimm.
enhanced.
Yeah,
no, that is him because it's on his Instagram.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
on his Instagram.
Okay, good.
Those are
Brent's
Ramos'
right.
eyes.
That is yes.
Then I will
lips, but that is the least angular jaw on Mr. Fantastic, on anybody I've seen on, looking at Mr. Fantastic than in forever.
This is to me personally. It looks like he is combining the styles of Michael Turner and Waringo.
There's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, but
all the dead guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're both no longer with us. But like, it's like Turner meets Waringo in like all the right ways. That thing is perfect on the bottom.
That is Brent was right. That is his thing's face. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
but I even like
doing the free comic book day Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
Reed,
I even like Sue's. I like Sue's face in that because she does look like she's gonna fuck you up.
Yes, she does. Definitely. Yep. And yeah, Reed got rid of the beard, and I'm okay with that. I'm personally okay.
Please, no hobo look for Reed.
There was one, because like right now in Daredevil, Murdoch and Barenthal have beards, and they had beards in the comics recently, and so did Reed. Because I know in modern society beards are in now. So I was wondering if you're going to kind of stick with that, but like it's interesting because when these characters were first created around the 60s, it was very much like clean shaven was in vogue.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. It's so weird. All three men on this call having beards. That's so crazy.
I put an image in the chat of the angular Ramos I love.
Guys, if you wait another 20 years, I will have a nice little beard because I am high testosterone. So I'll be one of those old ladies with the little danglies. It's gonna be
like the old Asian ladies in Raph's neighborhood.
Oh God,
that Colossus face. Yeah, that's Ramos.
Oh
yeah, that is around when I was like, I am done with this guy.
See, I like this style. I like it a lot.
His art started to defy the scripts. Like no matter what was being said, the facial reactions were just hard crashing against what was being said. And it's like, okay,
literally the only person that I liked him drawing during this era was Iceman. I think his Iceman worked really well. But also in this era, it was very hard to tell the difference between Chris Bachalo and Ramos. Like,
look at Colossus's arm; it gets thicker the longer it goes. Like his forearm is thicker than his bicep.
So I
doesn't happen on mine.
I remember 1 month in the 90s
Maybe
where like
Donna's.
every week I went to the comic shop, there was a new title by Ramos on the shelves.
Mhm.
And that's
Oh,
when I
yeah.
really started to worry about the man. So I think he was doing, I think, Impulse, X Nation, and maybe it was Deviate.
Oh boy.
And I bought all of them, and I also wondered like, what is this man okay? You know?
He's a nice guy.
Donovan, I want this Colossus pose on your next Instagram post with your shirt off. Okay.
Oh God. No,
I'll get right on
that is
it.
Your
not
thirst trap.
that is not possible. No man can pull that off. That is insane.
Subscribe to Dono's Instagram for thirst traps.
Yeah, give me like an 8 ball of Trimbalon and
Oh
whatever,
my
and
God.
I'll get right on it.
Depending on how long this next segment takes, this might very well be split up into 2 episodes because we've been doing that lately, and it's actually kind of been working because we do about an hour and a half and an hour and a half. So
I think honestly, yeah, we could just turn into marathon sessions and then you can break them up and then we don't have to complain about you not releasing episodes, Ian.
Exactly. There you go. But
Yeah, dude, I'm pretty sure good soon.
I want to do recent reads for everybody, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up from there. But I as part of my recent reads, just because we talked Uncanny and I didn't get to talk X-Men nearly as much, I just want to get my thoughts out on Jed MacKay's X-Men run a little bit. What I like about both Uncanny and X-Men right now is that I'm getting very positive reminders of the good era of late 90s, early 2000s X-Men. Around the time of when, Rogue was in space, that sort of stuff. Like that's the general feel that I get off of this. And it's not in a, Jim Lee early 90s way. Like it's straight up like it reminds me of when I was a kid, which again makes sense because the writers writing this were probably a kid when I was a kid. So that we're at that point. I think Jed MacKay is working with some good characters in this. As I mentioned, previously, it's Cyclops, it's Beast, it's Magneto, it's Asian Psylocke, Kid Omega, Temper, Magic, and Juggernaut. That's the main team. And what works with that is it's a little bit of old, it's a little bit of new, and we get multiple eras of X-Men combined into one. The Alaska base reminds me a lot of like the Australia days in a positive way, where they're kind of just like off on their own while at the same time trying to continue the dream of Xavier. And one of the main plot points of this run of the X-Men is that the mutant X gene is being triggered later on in life. And they're trying to figure out why the hell all of a sudden full-grown adults are going X gene. And Beast is out there, while at the same time also trying to figure out if there was a flaw in Krakoa's regeneration matrix. Because we find out in the course of this series that is the reason why Magneto is in the wheelchair. Is when he was resurrected during the Krakoa days, something was wrong in the Matrix, and his powers went haywire, and he basically is slowly but surely losing control of his body. It's almost like ALS for mutants. And at Beast is there trying to figure it out, but also because comics, this is not the Beast that everyone knew in Krakoa. This is a younger Beast that has been revived and isn't crazy and all that jazz. So he's basically trying to catch his technology up to try to figure out what's going wrong. And by the way, the main villain is Cassandra Nova. So
Hi.
Yeah, exactly. So in conclusion, really like what MacKay is bringing to the table on this. I enjoy Stegman, but I am liking the Netho Diaz stuff just as much as you are, Brent, as fill-in. And I especially enjoy the interaction between characters like Cyclops and Kid Omega, who couldn't be more different. And like Cyclops would be like Quentin, set up this psychic link. Only if you call me Kid Omega. I'm not gonna call you Kid Omega. Okay, Slim. Don't call me Slim.
I love Quentin Quire so much. He's such a shit, and I love that.
Yep. So that's really working for me in general. That X-Men series and both X-Men series, flagship X-Men are really working for me in different ways than the Krakoa era stuff was, and that's kind of what I wanted out of it. If you're gonna make it different enough where it makes sense, and it still feels like X-Men to me, and that's what matters in the end. So good stuff so far. Brent, what you got?
All right. Inspired by Ian's talk with the other gold team, blue team. What are we? I read all of Radiant Black. Love that.
Nice.
I read that on planes to California a couple months ago.
Awesome.
And then here's the next stack of recent reads I have to record videos on for my channel. One Hand and the Six Fingers. This is the dual series by Ram V and Dan Waters.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting. I read The Dark Knight Rises here. Batman the Cult. See my video for why I'm saying that. Batman, what is this? Man Who Laughs. And then I was trying to do a Hush reread before Hush 2 came out. I didn't quite make it there. I did read all of Batman Hush, and I read all of the Gotham Knights stuff by AJ Lieberman and Albert Nuevo. Skip that stuff. So hoping to get to the Paul Dini omnibus I have on my shelf that I didn't get to.
Oh yeah, Heart of Hush is good.
Yeah, I love that stuff. So excited to read that.
Next episode that we get together, I'll have caught up hopefully on the Absolute stuff, and I'll be able to talk about that more. But the other thing that I wanted to mention before we get to other recent reads is that I cannot wait for the new History of the DC Universe by Mark Waid that's going to be coming out. That'd
be cool.
It's about damn time, and if anybody can pull it off, it's going to be Mark, and that comes out in June, and I cannot freaking wait to see what he's going to be able to pull off. So absolutely. Donna, what you got?
Same as last time. Batgirl's good. Like speaking from a Cassandra Cain fan, it is good. It's not perfect. I've had static with how like the voices of her characters are, like particularly Shiva, but that last issue was like one for the ages, truly. And I think Tate Brumble's a real one. Batman Robin Year One, still really enjoying it. I have personal preferences I wish were kind of implemented in the book, but it's still solid. Same thing with World's Finest. World's Finest is always solid. Let's see what else. I'm not reading a lot of Marvel right now. Spider-Man is like kind of off the deep end. I've fallen off behind on Daredevil for a while. So what other stuff am I reading right now? I mean, what I have read all since the last episode was the whole series of Invincible. I actually sat down and read through issue 144. I read like 10 issues a night. I was up till 3 a.m. sometimes reading the issues because if those who were just seeing the show have not read the comic, it gets better and better and better.
It really does.
You're like, oh my God.
You want to talk about an art style change? Look at Ryan Otley from like issue 14 to Ryan Otley on the end. He does get much simpler. And then you look at his stuff when he jumped on Amazing Spider-Man. He even changed it again then.
Yeah. I was not familiar with his game.
Opposite direction, and he's a phenomenal artist.
He's a terrific artist. I absolutely adore his art, and like I just appreciate how the story was an arc, and I thought that it ended very very well. And I'm interested to see how the show does adapt certain things.
By the way, Dono, since you read all of Invincible, do yourself a favor. It is actually on the Marvel Unlimited app. If you haven't read the Marvel Team Up issue written by Kirkman featuring Spider-Man and Invincible,
oh yes, I should read that.
You do that. It's right in the middle of one of the major arcs, and they basically recreated that for the show minus the Spider-Man IP. So that it's a really fun issue of Team Up. So give that a go.
This is fun too. The Invincible Universe Compendium. It says one. I don't know if there's a second one at all. It's got a bunch of Guardians of the Globe stuff in here, which is fun. Mm-hmm. Not Invincible, and then the Adam Eve miniseries of her origins, like the first thing up in here.
I really like the Adam Eve origin, which they also basically
the animated special they did at the end of season 2.
Yep, good stuff.
Some stuff.
Chris, what you got?
That's reading Uncanny was probably the first American superhero comics I've read in a while. I'm enjoying it, and I'll have more of an update next time. Finally cashed in I got the special deal at New York Comic Con. where you get like a whole year, and it was what, $49 instead
Yep.
of like 70 or whatever they charge now.
Nice.
I as everyone knows, I've been reading a lot of manga. I've been reading JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I finally hit part 5, Golden Wind, and now I'm finally ready to just chuck the whole thing out a window. I think was it Brandon who said he actually liked it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Brandon said yes, but he also understands why you don't.
And it's funny to say that it's the most JoJo because I actually feel like it's the least JoJo. Because like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, for those who aren't too familiar with it, and I really do mean to record like an extra point or something about it. It's like an intergenerational saga, which really just means we're just telling a bunch of different stories, and the main character is always named JoJo, and they're always slightly related to the other JoJos.
I thought you were talking about JoJo's Last Rabbit, the Taika Waititi movie today in the chat when y'all were talking about that.
It's called JoJo Rabbit, not JoJo's Last Rabbit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But,
Someone
yeah,
dies in there.
yeah, but like the chapter I'm up to, the JoJo of this thing is like the illegitimate son of one of the villains while he was like living in the body of a previous JoJo. Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And he wants to become like a mob boss in Italy, and I'm like, this is the dumbest shit. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this so much.
Wait, you allow me to reference this one more time this episode. Wait, did they eventually introduce Joey Jojo Shabadoo or?
I think that might be the next iteration of the JoJo universe.
Okay, got it.
Because then once I finish part 6, Stone Ocean, then the whole thing sort of reboots, and it's every JoJo chapter after that and is set in a different universe. So there's a JoJo's multiverse.
Nice.
Yeah, I know it's painful.
Yes.
I mean, the other thing I've been reading is not a comic. I was sending Ian's like screenshots of the text. I read Alex Segura's Alter Ego.
Nice.
Which is technically, I mean, it's not really I don't know if you call it a sequel or not, but a companion novel to his first novel, Secret Identity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is set like, in the present day, while Secret Identity was set in the 70s. And it's about, sorry, I have to think about this, like a woman who wanted to write comics, kind of flamed out of the industry, and ended up as a successful movie director. But when like one of those, I don't know what you want to call it, like a resurrected zombie brand comes back and they're going to reboot her favorite character and they invite her to do it. And so she gets like pulled in and, and people are always like, are you sure they own the character? And there's like there's like ownership messiness in there, like it's all of like the different things you remember from like all the legal troubles from comics for the past like 40 years.
Yeah.
But there's also like the previous novel apparently was a murder mystery, so this has ties to that. And I mean, I mostly was like, okay, this feels like you're trying to cram in as many comic book references as possible. Because it'd be like, oh, I walked into the room and oh my God, their shelves had titles by, it was like by Frank Miller and Morrison and, and Mark Miller. Like they just start rattling off names. And then, I sent Ian this one excerpt that I thought was funny where the character, it's supposed to be 1993. And the character's like, oh my God, I love the current run of X Factor. That's the best team, the original X-Men, but now they're X Factor. And I was like, yeah, I was like, Alex, why did you do this?
So close. You came so close.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't want to nitpick over every little thing, but it's like, if you're going to start throwing in references and then you make this kind of error like that, it just drove me.
I think they have Random on the team by 1983.
Yeah.
Havoc.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. 93 was the Havoc Peter David.
Well, that's just it. 1991 was the huge reboot of all the X-Men titles. Mm-hmm. And that's when X Factor, became the government sponsored
Peter
team.
David.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the X-Men proper, split into the blue and gold teams, and so all the original X-Men went back to the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of drove me nuts.
That's my X Factor.
Speaking of X Factor, like I've heard that Greg Capullo and was it Quesada started on X Factor, but I swear to God, I've never seen any of their art on X Factor from those days.
I've seen Quesada's definitely. Quesada, I think, was near the end of X Factor, if I remember correctly. But I'll have to double check that because I was reading X Factor near the end of its run before they canceled the book. And
for me, Capullo starts at Spawn. And I know he was a Marvel artist before then, but
I loved him as Spawn.
I thought it was X Factor, but I don't remember seeing anything from him.
So I just want to point out, I did enjoy the novel, and I love that for this and Secret Identity, he actually commissioned art. So you see pages from the comic in the story. Cool. Yeah, this a little. There's even, if I could find it right now, there's even a fake page from Merlin magazine. Yeah, I don't know where it is.
Wizard alternate.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see if I can find it, but this is a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah, this is the fake page from Merlin magazine. Not that anybody who's listening can actually see it.
We are a video podcast on youtube.com/comic timing podcast.
Yes, but
basically
but for those who are listening, they now know that it was a Wizard parody. So
yeah, it literally says
to YouTube, subscribe and troll us.
Yeah, it literally says top 10 forgotten heroes that would make a great show. And it has number 6, more like the missing links, the kitten with a whip or grappling hook was a marquee character for the ironically named Triumph Comics because they're now defunct. Waka waka. Holy shit, you nailed it. You nailed how awful the writing was sometimes.
Oh my God. To answer Brent, by the way, Capullo was issues 15 through 25 of the original X Factor.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. And Quesada worked near the much further along at issue 87 and that era. So yeah.
You know what? One issue can make a huge impact in your mind. Like I mentioned Brian Hitch earlier. He did one issue of X-Men and I was like, this is fucking great. Everybody has stubble. I love it.
Yep. And then he worked on, I think, Factor X for Age of Apocalypse, if I remember correctly. Yep. All right, awesome. So good stuff to be had, and that about wraps us up here. So, of course, time for everybody to pimp their usual wares. Donovan, start with you.
My podcast, Questions We Don't Have Answers, over at QNoWareses.com with my buddy Harrison Shoot. Please check out DCComics.com for my paid articles that I get paid for. And the BatmanUniverse.net, where I do review Batman Robin Year 1 and the current Batgirl title.
Excellent. Brent?
BK's Bullets at YouTube.
Yeah.
I just got monetized, so watch my ads, bitch.
Aren't you a lucky son of a... Yep.
No
it
more
only
swearing.
took 8 years.
Yeah. So, hey, it's going to take us about 8 years here too. So that's probably going to be about the case. So, by the way, if any of you want to rush that along, head on over to youtube.com/comic timing podcast and subscribe and watch a little bit.
You know, what you had to do to become monetized? Was this
you have to have 1,000 subscribers, which I hit a year and a half ago, I think. Yep. Finally. The big hard thing is you got to get 4,000 hours of watch time in a year span, and that counter always moves one day, right? So for some reason, the Invincible Compendiums overview I did 2 years ago of all 3, before I had read them, has blown the fuck up. And that's what got me over the hump on season 3, no less.
No, I figured as much. That's going to happen. So it all depends on what's popular and what's hot. Yep.
It's good that I'm recording evergreen reviews that never go out of date, hopefully.
Exactly.
True.
Chris, where can they find you?
I'm on the Blue Skies at lampbane.bsky.social. You can find me on itch.io if you want to play some of the stupid games I make on a monthly basis. And I should have some stuff up on Engadget in the near future because I'm still doing buying guides for them. And let's hope that I find a job soon, because I get those hi, yeah, we really loved your application, but this position has been put on hold. Yeah, so that's what I'm getting. Not so much we don't like you, so much as we don't have money right now, we broke.
Hey, we like you, and this is crazy, but we're all out of money, so see you later. That didn't rhyme, but that's about
us never.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, if you want to put out good vibes, I did apply for one of those onion jobs that went up yesterday. So
hey, who knows?
knows?
Who knows? Well, one thing that I do know is that it's time for credits, and I have them at the ready, and now it's time to play our 2000s metal music. Email address is comictiming@gmail.com. Facebook.com/comictiming is where you can find us on the Facebooks. That's also where you can find the Comic Timing fan group. And we may be trying to branch out on the fan group a little bit in the not-too-distant future to other places. I'm going to put feelers out there. We'll see what happens. But for now, we're mainly on Facebook, Comic Timing fan group for that. Instagram, Comic Timing fan group. Instagram, Comic Timing Podcast. Threads, we're also Comic Timing Podcast. And Blue Sky, we are Comic Timing. And of course, on YouTube, we are Comic Timing Podcast. And please subscribe if you have not already done so. Thanks to Brent. Thanks to Kris. Thanks to Donovan. Thanks to me. And as always, there's always time for comics. Hulk just want pants.
Yay.
A decent pair of pants.